Midway through my big client pitch, my VP cut me off and announced I was getting fired. The room went dead silent, but after dinner the client asked me to step outside, and what he said made my VP sprint into the parking lot screaming. I was halfway through explaining the final slide, the one that showed how my strategy had pulled in $78 million in new revenue, when my VP, Carter Hale, stood up, tapped his glass with a fork, and smiled like a man enjoying someone else's funeral. "Before we continue," he said, "I need to make an announcement. This will be Jordan's last project with us. We're letting her go." The room froze. 30 executives inside the private dining hall at the Bristol in Chicago went dead silent. My mouth literally stopped mid-word. The presentation clicker slipped in my hand. I heard someone gasp. Someone else muttered, "What the hell?" Carter kept smiling, but it was the kind that never touched his eyes. "Anyway," he continued, gesturing at me like I was an inconvenience, "go ahead and finish. Let's not waste Mr. Rayner's time." Mr. Rayner, Elias Rayner, billionaire, owner of Rayner Logistics, and our biggest client, just stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not pity, not surprise, something else. Somehow I kept talking. My body moved on autopilot, even as humiliation burned through me like acid. 5 years of loyalty and late nights. 5 years building the Rayner account from nothing into our firm's crown jewel. And Carter chose now, in front of clients, board members, and half the Chicago market, to ambush me. When I wrapped up, the applause sounded wrong. Awkward. Forced. Elias didn't clap. He just kept watching me. When dessert plates were cleared, he leaned toward me and said quietly, "Can we talk outside?" Outside. The cold Chicago wind cut through my blazer, but Elias's voice was steady. "That," he said, "was the most unprofessional stunt I've witnessed in 27 years. And it was done to the one person in the room who actually knew what she was talking about." I swallowed hard. "Thank you. I wish I understood why it happened." "What's going on inside your company?" he asked. So I told him. Not everything, just the parts one could say without falling apart. How things changed after Carter's promotion. How he suggested I adjust quarterly projections to look rosier for the board. How I refused. How every red flag since then suddenly made sense. Elias nodded slowly. Integrity. Rare commodity. Then he said the last thing I expected. "How would you feel about using that integrity somewhere bigger?" Before I could ask what he meant, we heard hurried footsteps. Carter came jogging across the parking lot, hair out of place, sweat on his collar. The most rattled I'd ever seen him. "Mr. Rayner," he panted. "Everything all right?" "Perfectly fine," Elias said coolly. "I was offering Jordan the director position at the Cobalt Institute, the one overseeing corporate ethics reform." Carter's face drained. "The what?" Elias folded his arms. "The role that publishes industry guidelines. The role that exposes manipulation practices companies try to hide." Something shifted inside me, hard, cold, electric. Because Carter wasn't shocked that Elias wanted me. He was shocked because he thought nobody knew what he had been doing. But here's the real twist, one I didn't understand until much later. Elias didn't learn about Carter's projection adjustments from me. Someone else told him. Someone inside my company. Someone who wanted Carter to burn. I didn't know it yet, but Carter wasn't my only enemy. And he definitely wasn't my biggest one. "Jordan," Elias said softly, "are you ready for what comes next?" I had no idea what he meant. Not then. But I said yes. And that was the moment everything started to unravel. When I finally got home that night, still wearing the same blazer Carter had humiliated me in, I sat on my couch in my tiny apartment in Logan Square and stared at the wall. I kept replaying his voice in my head, that smug tone he used when he told an entire room I was being let go. But the thing is, that wasn't the beginning. Not even close. People like Carter don't destroy your career overnight. They do it piece by piece, quietly, while smiling at you in the hallway. 5 years earlier, when I joined Bridgewell Strategies, things were different. Back then, our CEO, Marla Chin, ran the place with a mix of mentorship and backbone. She noticed talent. She rewarded integrity. She pushed me, but she also backed me. When she assigned me the barely there Rainer Logistics account, she said, "Make something out of this, Jordan. Prove what you can do." And I did. Late nights, endless calls, building trust with Elias's team from scratch. By year 3, Rainer Logistics brought in almost a third of our annual revenue. People noticed. Some congratulated me. Others watched with jealousy. But Carter? He watched like a man sizing up a threat. He wasn't even in my division then, just another smooth-talking VP with expensive suits and a habit of saying things like, "We need growth," while doing nothing to help create it. He played golf with board members, charmed Marla's replacement, a CEO we all unanimously disliked, and somehow always knew whom to flatter and whom to undermine. Then Marla retired, and that's when everything changed. The board brought in Dana Whitmore, a CEO obsessed with numbers that make investors excited, even if that meant fudging projections until they were basically fiction. She loved Carter, promoted him within a month, called him a visionary. Even though he didn't understand half the strategies my team built, he started small, leaving me out of meetings, setting unrealistic deadlines, reassigning my best analysts, all those classic push-out moves that look accidental if you're not paying attention. Then came the day he called me into his office and shut the door. "We need to adjust the Q3 projections," he said, hands folded like he was asking for a favor. "The board wants optimism." "Optimism isn't data," I told him. He smiled. "Then make it data." I refused. That was the beginning of the end, though I didn't realize how far he'd go. The next month, he gave my deliverables to another manager for additional polish. A week later, Dana sent me an email asking why my numbers looked less promising than Carter's. Then rumors started circulating about me being difficult. I got invited to fewer leadership meetings. Projects I'd pioneered were suddenly listed under Carter's name. But none of that compared to the moment he found out about the private meeting I'd had with one of Bridgewell's board members, because the board member asked me, personally, about our declining morale and projection inconsistencies. 3 days later, Carter made his move. Not by firing me, by humiliating me, by executing my career publicly, in front of a billionaire client, in a setting where I couldn't defend myself without looking unhinged. Because that's what people like Carter understand. A private attack can be argued. Public one sticks. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. Even now, Carter didn't know something. Someone was feeding information about him to Elias long before that dinner presentation. Someone who had their own reasons for wanting me pushed out, and him protected. I thought Carter was the problem. I didn't know the real threat was someone much higher. And they had plans for both of us. After that night at the Bristol, everything started moving at a speed that made my stomach feel permanently twisted. Elias told me he'd send over the official offer for the Cobalt Institute Fellowship in the morning, but I barely slept. My mind kept looping back to the way Carter's face drained when he heard the words, corporate ethics reform. He looked scared. Not annoyed. Not angry. Scared. And I didn't understand why, not yet. By 7 a.m., Bridgewell's HR had already emailed me a termination packet, full of neutral corporate phrases that didn't match what happened the night before. According to the paperwork, I had chosen to explore new opportunities and was leaving on amicable terms. No mention of being blindsided in front of clients. No mention of Carter hijacking a meeting he wasn't even scheduled to attend. Felt like erasure, a rewrite of my own story. I ignored the packet. Instead, I showered, put on clean clothes, and walked to Blue Crown Coffee like I did every morning before work. Routine felt like the only solid thing in my world. That was when I saw someone unexpected sitting at a corner table. Dana Whitmore, our CEO. The woman who'd barely spoken to me in months. The woman who had moved Carter up the ladder like he was her personal project. She waved me over with the kind of tight smile you learn to fear. "Jordan, sit with me." Everything in my body told me to walk out, but I sat. She didn't waste time. "I heard about the incident last night." "Incident," I repeated. "That's one word for it." "I want to be clear," she said smoothly. Carter acted independently. "I didn't authorize any termination announcement. The lie was so cleanly delivered that, for a second, I almost believed it. "You're trying to distance yourself," I said. She blinked once, annoyed I'd said it out loud. Then she leaned in. "You've built a strong reputation in the industry. The last thing I need is for you to start misrepresenting what happened." There it was, the warning, wrapped in polite corporate language. "What exactly do you think I'm going to say?" I asked. "That depends," she replied. "Are you accepting Elias Rayner's offer?" My blood froze. "How do you even know about that?" She gave me a thin smile. "People talk. And Elias is influential." She paused. "Influential men don't offer positions like that to people unless there's something in it for them." The implication was obvious and disgusting. I stood. "We're done here." But as I turned to leave, Dana called after me. "Be careful, Jordan. You're stepping into something much larger than you understand." I didn't know it then, but she wasn't warning me. She was threatening me. That afternoon, someone from my old team, Nina, sent me a message from her personal phone. "He's shredding things and wiping shared drives. Something big is happening. You need to know." My pulse spiked. Then another message. "This isn't just about projections. There's something else. Something that involves Dana." I asked her what she meant, but instead of responding, Nina sent one more message. "I can't text more. They're watching communications. Meet me tonight, 8:30. Behind the office building. Park on the lower level." A cold knot tightened in my chest. This wasn't just office politics anymore. Something was being erased fast. And if Nina was right, the projection manipulation I refused to take part in was just the surface of something much bigger, darker, and far more dangerous. I didn't know it yet, but the real escalation wasn't the sabotage. It wasn't the firing. It wasn't even the threats. The real escalation began when I drove to that lower parking level that night and found someone else waiting for me in the dark. I pulled into the lower level of the parking garage at 8:28 p.m. The place was almost empty, lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs that hummed like they were struggling to stay alive. I parked near the concrete column Nina mentioned and waited, gripping my steering wheel so tightly my fingers went numb. Nina was never late. Never. By 8:35 my chest was tight. By 8:40 my phone buzzed. Except it wasn't Nina. It was Carter. "We need to talk. Now, come up to the 4th floor conference room." My stomach twisted. There was no universe in which I was walking back into that building alone with him. I texted back. "Not happening." No reply. At 8:46, footsteps echoed through the garage. I sat up straight, searching the shadows. "Jordan?" A voice called softly. "Hey, it's me." Relief washed over me. It was Nina. She hurried toward my car, looking around nervously, hugging a laptop to her chest like it was a life preserver. But before she reached me, another set of steps echoed. Heavier. Faster. Carter. He emerged from the ramp between levels, breathless and angry, like he'd run the whole way. "Nina," he snapped. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She froze, eyes wide. He said, "I told you not to contact her," Carter seethed. "Are you trying to destroy your career too?" Nina's lip trembled. You said we had to protect the company. I said to let me handle things," he hissed. My door was already open. "Nina, get over here." Carter turned to me, face going cold. "Jordan, leave. Now." "No," I said, stepping out of the car. "She asked to meet me." "No," he said flatly. "I told her to meet you." My breath caught. "What?" Nina's eyes darted between us. Panicked. "He said you needed help. He said you were in danger. He said it was the only way to get the backup logs from the server." I felt sick. Carter had set this up. Not to warn me. Not to help me. To find out who had been talking to me. "Why?" I demanded. He didn't blink. "Because someone's been giving you information that doesn't belong to you. That information is evidence." I shot back. "Evidence of manipulation. Fraud. Sabotage. Your sabotage." His expression tightened, not guilty, not defensive, but calculating. "You're blaming the wrong person." Before I could respond, Nina whispered, "Jordan, you don't understand. He wasn't alone." Dana knew. Carter spun toward her. "Enough." But she kept talking, voice shaking. "They've been altering projections for 2 years. Dana approved everything. And the billing irregularities? The overcharges? Carter and Dana signed off on those too." My stomach dropped. "Nina, why didn't you tell anyone sooner?" Nina looked at the floor. Because I thought you were part of it." The words hit me like a punch. "What are you talking about?" I whispered. She flinched. "Dana told us you knew. She said you'd been helping her. She said you—" My entire world tilted. Dana hadn't just undermined me. She'd used me as a shield, a scapegoat. She framed me inside my own team so no one would trust me when the truth came out. And Carter, whether he knew or not, played along. I stared at both of them, realization crashing over me like ice water. Dana hadn't promoted Carter because she believed in him. She promoted him because he was willing to dirty his hands for her. Because he'd take the fall if things went bad. Because she needed a loyal soldier and a disposable one. But the real twist came next. Carter's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then at me. His face drained in an instant. "She knows you're here," he whispered. "Dana, she knows. And she's coming." Nina gasped. "We have to go." I grabbed the keys, heart pounding. "Get in the car." But before any of us could move, headlights flared at the far end of the garage. A black SUV turned slowly into the row, coming straight toward us. The black SUV rolled toward us at a slow, deliberate crawl, the kind of speed that wasn't about driving. It was about intimidation, about making sure we knew someone was in control, someone with power, someone like Dana Whitmore. "Jordan?" Nina whispered, voice cracking. "We have to move." "No," Carter said suddenly, stepping back like he wanted to disappear into the concrete. "We don't run. If she sees us running, it's over." He looked genuinely terrified. That was the moment I realized something important. Carter wasn't the mastermind. He was the puppet. And the strings around his throat were starting to tighten. The SUV stopped 20 feet from us. The engine idled. No doors opened. I felt Nina trembling beside me. I made a decision. "Get in my car. Now." Carter hesitated, torn between loyalty and fear. I didn't wait for him. I grabbed Nina's arm and shoved her into the passenger seat. "Either get in or stay here alone," I told him. That did it. He dove into the back seat just as I hit the gas. The SUV's headlights swung sharply, but I took a hard right and sped up the ramp. No one followed, or at least not immediately. When we reached the street, all 3 of us were shaking. I drove 2 blocks before pulling into an empty lot behind a closed auto shop. Only then did any of us speak. "What the hell was that?" I demanded. Carter answered, not with anger, but with a kind of defeated resignation I'd never seen on him. "She's cleaning house." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means she's burning evidence, shutting down anyone who knows too much, rewriting records, scrubbing everything before the board meeting next week." "Board meeting?" I asked. He nodded. "Internal audit. A big one. Triggered because Rayner's contract numbers didn't align with Bridgewell's reports. Dana thinks someone's been feeding external agencies information." My voice was cold. "She thinks it's me." "She knows it's you," he said. "But I haven't given anything to—" "Doesn't matter," Carter said quietly. "She needs a scapegoat. She picked you because you refused to play along. People who say no are liabilities." Nina wiped her eyes. "Jordan, we kept asking why you were being pushed out. She told all of us you were leaving voluntarily, after mismanaging your accounts. She said you were unstable. She spread rumors to make us distrust you." It hit me like a punch. Dana hadn't just undermined me professionally. She'd paved the road for my execution months in advance. "So what now?" Nina whispered. I exhaled slowly. The panic inside me crystallized into something else. Clarity. "We fight back." Carter blinked. "Against Dana? Are you insane?" She controls every department. She has the board wrapped around her finger. She doesn't control the truth. I cut in. He laughed bitterly. Truth doesn't matter in that company. Power does. No, I said. Documentation does. Evidence does. Patterns do. Carter went silent. I turned to Nina. What do we have? What exactly did you bring me? She clutched her laptop. Server logs. Backdoor access timestamps. Ghost revisions to financial models. And the code for the billing inflation algorithm. My heart hammered. All traceable to who? Nina hesitated. Then she said the name that changed everything. Dana. And the board member she's been paying under the table. I froze. What board member? Nina swallowed hard. Your mentor's replacement. Marla's seat. The one who pushed for Carter's promotion. A chill crawled down my spine. Someone on the board wasn't just enabling Dana. They were profiting from it. A silent partner in fraud. And suddenly, the SUV in the garage made perfect sense. This wasn't corporate politics anymore. This was criminal conspiracy. Carter finally looked up at me, eyes hollow. What are you planning, Jordan? Everything inside me sharpened into focus. We're going to expose all of them, I said. But not fast, not sloppy, not loud. Nina nodded, catching on. You want to build a case. A perfect one, I said. One they can't bury or twist or blame on me. Carter swallowed. That'll take time. Good, I said. Because people like Dana make mistakes when they think they've already won. For the first time that night, I felt something dark but steady inside me. Control. What I didn't know yet was that while I was planning my counterattack, someone else, someone I didn't suspect, was planning theirs. For a few days, everything went strangely, almost suspiciously quiet. Too quiet. Nina and I met in libraries, diners, and parking lots. Anywhere we wouldn't be seen. We compiled logs, cross-checked files, and built a timeline of every manipulated projection and every inflated invoice. Carter, now fully aware he'd been nothing but Dana's disposable attack dog, started feeding us internal memos and board reports he'd saved, just in case. But the quieter the company got, the more nervous I became. Silence is never safety in situations like this. Silence is the coil before the strike. On the fourth night, I was at my kitchen counter going through Nina's latest data packet when my phone buzzed with a private number. I almost ignored it, but something, instinct, dread, something made me answer. A voice I knew immediately came through the speaker. Jordan. It was Marla Chin, my former CEO, the one person I'd always trusted. I froze. Marla? Where are you? What's going on? I don't have long, she said. Her voice was strained, urgent. You're digging into things you don't fully understand. I'm digging into what Dana's doing, I said. What she's been doing since you left. There was a long pause on her end. Then, quietly, I never left. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? I was pushed out, she said. Same way you were. Only I saw the setup too late. By the time I realized what was happening, the board had already voted me out. I fought it. But the internal investigation they fabricated against me ruined my reputation. Felt like someone punched the air out of my lungs. Marla? I whispered. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because, she said gently. That's exactly what Dana expected me to do. She needed me desperate. She needed me visible. And I refused to give her the satisfaction. I sank onto the couch, mind spinning. So you've been what, away? Waiting. Watching, she corrected. And now I'm warning you. Dana isn't acting alone. She's not the architect. My chest tightened. I thought I already knew the second villain. The corrupt board member who'd taken over Marla's seat. But Marla's next words knocked the ground out from beneath me. The board member you're looking into? She's not her own mastermind either. She's covering for someone above her. There's no one above the board, I said. There is, Marla replied. Someone who controls the board. Someone who controls Dana. Someone who engineered my downfall, Carter's promotion, your termination. All of it. No, I said, shaking my head. That doesn't make sense. The only person with that kind of influence would be. Marla finished the sentence for me. Elias Rayner. I went still. Utterly still. That's impossible, I said. He offered me a position. He helped me. He saw what Carter did. Jordan, she interrupted, firm and heartbreaking. He didn't offer you a new beginning. He offered you leverage. A tool. A way to extract information from you while looking innocent. Couldn't breathe. The room tunneled. Why would Elias want to sabotage his own account? I whispered. He didn't, Marla said. He wanted control. Bridgewell was becoming too powerful, too profitable, too independent. So he created instability from the inside. Dana was his puppet. Carter was hers. And you, her voice broke. You were the knife they planned to throw away after using. The floor felt like it tilted. Everything, my humiliation, the fellowship offer, the sudden interest in helping me. It all clicked into place with horrible clarity. I thought Elias was saving me, but he had been watching me long before that dinner, feeding the downfall, letting me take the moral high ground while he steered the destruction. And then Marla said one last thing. Quiet, urgent, devastating. Jordan, you're the last piece he needs, and now he knows you have evidence. He will come for you. Tell no one. Not Carter. Not Nina. Not the board. No one. The call disconnected. I sat frozen in my dim apartment, clutching the phone, every truth cracking open at once. Elias Rayner wasn't my savior. He was the reason my life was burning. And the reason he wanted me close was far worse than anything Dana ever planned. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying Marla's words in my head, trying to make them make sense. Elias Rayner, the man who publicly humiliated Carter on my behalf, the man who offered me a prestigious ethics fellowship, the man who acted like he'd been shocked by my firing, was the one behind everything? I didn't want to believe it, but denial doesn't survive long when the facts start lining up. By morning, I was running on caffeine and adrenaline, staring at the pile of evidence Nina and I had built. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed with another private number. This time, I didn't hesitate. I answered. Jordan, Elias said warmly. I'm downstairs. Thought we could talk in person. My stomach dropped. He was here, at my building. I'm busy, I said, forcing calm into my voice. Now's not a good time. Funny, he said lightly. I wasn't asking. Every instinct screamed danger. I hung up, grabbed my laptop, and slipped out the back stairwell. When I reached the alley, I saw his black car parked at the curb. Sleek, expensive, tinted. A driver leaned casually against the door like he wasn't part of anything sinister. I ducked behind a dumpster before he spotted me, and my phone buzzed again. A text. Running won't help you, Jordan. My blood turned to ice. We need to talk. Now. I stepped farther into the alley, hands shaking, and finally typed back. Why me? What do you actually want? 3 dots appeared. Then his answer came through. Because you were clean. Too clean. And people trust clean people. A chill ran down my spine. I moved farther away before I answered. Trust me for what? His reply came instantly, as if he'd been waiting for me to ask. To replace Marla. To become the face of the company when the dust settles. My breath caught. And why would you want that? This time the answer was long. Because Bridgewell is worth billions. Because instability destroys valuation. Because I needed the company weakened before acquisition. Because a clean, principled leader reassures investors after a scandal. Because you were perfect for the role. Smart enough to run it. Moral enough to look innocent. And naive enough not to suspect you were being positioned. My knees nearly gave out. This wasn't corporate sabotage. This was a takeover. A hostile acquisition masked as internal corruption. A carefully orchestrated destabilization meant to tank the company's value, so Elias could buy it for a fraction of its worth. Carter's unethical projections? Pushed from above. Dana's fraudulent practices? Greenlit by Elias. My public humiliation. A staged spectacle to make me distrust Bridgewell and step closer to him. The fellowship offer? A leash disguised as an opportunity. And the worst part? The part that made my stomach twist into something dark and cold? He didn't need me fired. He needed me angry. He needed me to expose the corruption and become the hero who saved the company, because a savior with public goodwill is the perfect puppet CEO when an acquisition drops. I wasn't the target. I was the asset, a face for his takeover, a clean slate to parade in front of regulators, a convenient, polished leader who owed him everything. And once the acquisition was complete, he wouldn't need me anymore. He didn't have to say the last part out loud. I could feel it in the way he wrote. "Come down, Jordan. Let's finish what we started." That was the moment I understood the real horror. Elias didn't destroy my career. He built it into a weapon and planned to end me the moment I'd served his purpose. I straightened, heart steady for the first time all day. If he wanted a puppet, he chose the wrong woman. I didn't go downstairs. I didn't text Elias back. I didn't run either. Instead, I walked 3 blocks to the Lanford, a quiet hotel with private business suites, and set up everything I needed for the final strike. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My breathing was slow, focused, controlled. People think revenge is fire, but real revenge, effective revenge, is ice. At 11:03 a.m., I texted Nina and Carter. Emergency meeting. Lanford Hotel. Suite 214. Bring everything. Nina arrived first, clutching her laptop like a lifeline. Carter came 5 minutes later, looking like a man who'd seen the edge of the cliff and finally understood who pushed him there. "What's going on?" Nina asked. I opened my folders, my drives, my compiled reports. "We're done gathering evidence," I said. "Now we weaponize it." Carter swallowed. "Against Dana?" "No," I said. "Against the real architect." I told them everything: Marla's call, Elias's confession, the takeover plan, the setup. Nina's hand flew to her mouth. Carter turned white. "He used all of us?" Carter whispered. "Like disposable parts," I said. "And today, before he makes his next move, we end his entire plan." We started with the documents. Nina dug up the server logs proving data manipulation. I added Carter's internal emails showing directives from Dana that aligned perfectly with Elias's acquisition timeline. Then came the billing fraud algorithm. And finally, my favorite part, shared drive histories proving that changes to projections originated not in our company servers, but from an external IP belonging to a private consultant, one paid directly by Rayner Holdings. We backed everything to 3 encrypted drives. Then I drafted a report, clean, factual, damning. A full blueprint of corporate sabotage. Revenge begins when the story becomes undeniable. At 1:22 p.m., I sent the file to the State Attorney General, the SEC Whistleblower Office, Bridgewell's entire board, 3 investigative reporters, and Marla Chun. Then, I attached a timestamped, digital notarized statement. The following evidence was gathered in good faith to protect shareholders, employees, and clients from an orchestrated scheme designed to manipulate corporate valuation for hostile acquisition. Carter stared at the screen. "He's finished." I shook my head. "Not yet, because destroying a man like Elias isn't enough. You have to make sure he can't rebuild." At 2:10 p.m., Elias called me again. This time I answered. He sounded annoyed. "Where are you?" "Working," I said lightly. "Jordan," he sighed. "Don't be dramatic. We both know you're not going to ruin your own future." "You're right," I said. "I'm not ruining anything." There was a pause. "Good. Then come downstairs. We'll talk next steps." I let my voice go cold. "There are no next steps, Elias." He inhaled sharply. "What did you do?" "Check your email." Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then rage. "You stupid." I hung up. Nina's eyes widened. "Jordan, it's done." "No," I said. "Now we watch it land." The fallout hit like an earthquake. By 3:40 p.m., Bridgewell's board announced an emergency suspension of Dana and the implicated board member. By 4:15, the Attorney General's office issued a statement confirming they'd opened a formal investigation. At 5:03, Elias Rayner held a press conference trying to deny everything. At 5:08, one of the journalists I'd sent the files to published a front-page story with every piece of evidence attached. By sunset, Rayner Holdings stock plunged 38%. And for the first time in years, I felt my shoulders drop. I wasn't scared. I wasn't cornered. I wasn't a pawn. I was free. 2 weeks later, Bridgewell asked me to return, not as a director, as chief ethics officer. I accepted, not for the title, not for revenge, but because thousands of employees deserved better than leaders who saw them as leverage. Carter resigned quietly. Nina became head of analytics. Marla returned as an advisor. As for Elias, he lost the acquisition, then the contracts, then the board seats, then the respect. Some say he's fighting the charges. Others say he's trying to rebuild somewhere quieter. I don't care. My revenge wasn't destroying him. My revenge was outlasting him. Rebuilding the thing he tried to break. Proving I didn't need him, his fellowship, or his approval. And when people ask how I survived it all, I tell them the truth. They pushed me out, and it gave me the perfect view of every weak spot they never thought I'd see.